The story sent shockwaves through the government. Cabinet papers released 30 years later record a series of top-level meetings held by the Home Secretary, Henry Brooke, at the House of Commons. Brooke told his colleagues that Cecil King was reported as saying the Sunday Mirror's story was the beginning of a scandal which would wreck the Tory party. But King's plan was about to misfire. It was not the government which had most to lose from the peer and the gangster story, but the Labour Party King was so desperately trying to help. What has never been revealed, and what the Mirror never realised, is that some of the photographs showed a fourth man, Teddy Smith, or Mad Teddy as he was known.
Teddy Smith was very close to the twins. He was part of their senior management team that met every day in Valence Road and conducted their business meetings. And he was very in with them, there's no question about that.
He was quite mad. He was a quite intelligent guy. He could speak a few languages. And he was quite well read. And it could hold very deep conversations. But he was a man that used to go into violent fits. He wanted to be hitting people on the chin for unknown reasons.
Teddy Smith was also homosexual. He had one relationship the Labour leadership had every interest in keeping quiet.
I used to see Teddy Smith with Driberg, Tom Driberg, and it was a well-known fact in the circle that what I used to mix with, he was having an affair with Driberg.
Tom Driberg was a senior Labour MP, member of the National Executive, former chairman of the party, and a voracious homosexual. If Driberg's relationship with the Krays' right-hand man had got out, the Labour Party would have been embroiled in its own sensational scandal.
Driberg, because of his sexual activities, could be preyed upon, and so he was always seen to be a person that would do the Krays some kind of favour through the efforts of Smith.
Driberg had several criminal lovers, for whom he did some extraordinary favours. One was a partner in crime and friend of 1960s robber Norman Parker.
My friend got Driberg to tell him about an antique dealer friend of Driberg's with a view to us going and robbing him. And that is in fact what we did. I mean, Driberg told us where he lived, what time he'd be in, we could catch him in, what sort of antiques that were there. We went along on the evening in question, we forced our way in, we tied the chap up. We robbed the place for about £20,000 worth of antiques and came away with them.
Would Driberg have expected to see any of that money?
According to my friend, he did expect to see some of the money. And according to my friend, he was given some of the money.
The Labour leadership was well aware of Driberg's predilections, but over many decades protected him. Driberg was the reason Harold Wilson knew that scandal could cut both ways, the reason stories like the peer and the gangster needed, for the good of the whole body politic, to be suppressed. When the story had first broken, Boothby was on holiday in France. As soon as he read it in the Mirror's foreign edition, he phoned Tom Driberg.
Boothby knew perfectly well Driberg was the great friend of the Krays. And if anyone would know what was going on in the underworld of London, it was that incredible louche character, Tom Driberg.
As Boothby returned to London, the Westminster rumour machine was linking Driberg to the scandal. Cabinet papers showed that two Tory MPs reported that Boothby and Driberg had been seen together importuning young men at dog racing tracks. With Driberg's name being dragged in, the top legal guns of the Labour Party were wheeled out to help Boothby. Boothby was put in touch with Arnold Goodman, Harold Wilson's solicitor and confidant. Goodman brought in Gerald Gardner, Labour's future Lord Chancellor. Gardner advised Boothby not to go to court. Instead, in a letter to the Times, drafted by Goodman, Boothby boldly declared that he was the peer the Mirror was targeting, but that the story was a tissue of atrocious lies. He denied he was a homosexual and stated that he had met Ronnie Kray on only 3 occasions at his flat to discuss a business proposition.
He'd been accused of being homosexual, and he wrote that letter to the Times to say that he wasn't and never had been, which was quite untrue because homosexuality at that time was illegal. And if it had come about that it really had and it could be proved, he'd committed a criminal offence. He was getting out of a hole. And if he could get out of a hole by lying, he'd get out of a hole by lying.
Boothby's lies also got Tom Driberg and the Labour Party out of any possible hole. In the face of Boothby's counter-attack, planned by influential figures so close to Labour's leader, the Mirror caved in. Cecil King agreed to pay Boothby £40,000, equivalent to £500,000 today.
Cecil King took the decision to settle out of court. He wouldn't fight it. Every single last person on the Mirror, except Cecil King, wanted to fight that case. We had the story, we had the pictures, we had the evidence, we had everything. But Cecil King wouldn't do it. And the whole building, why? Why are we not fighting it? Why are we not going to court?
The great and the good engineered the niftiest, swiftest cover-up, which netted Lord Boothby £40,000. An official apology grovellingly printed on the front of the Sunday Mirror for something which was pretty well the truth.
4 years later, Boothby himself gave John Pearson an extraordinary explanation of who had really been pulling the strings of the rescue operation.
I said, but there's one thing that did puzzle me about all this, Lord Boothby. Why was it that when the trouble started, the people who supported you weren't from your own party, the Conservatives, they were from the Labour Party? Ah, he said, there, now you've hit a very interesting point, Mr. Pearson, very interesting. He said, it's all down to the little man. So I said, who's the little man? Oh, he said, don't you know the little man? Harold Wilson. You see, he said, Harold had always been a great admirer of mine. And he said that was the real reason. He said it was Harold Wilson didn't want this slur over me. And he was the one who was responsible for getting Goodman to do the business and make the deal with the Sunday Mirror.
The peer had won a famous victory. It would have disastrous consequences for the police attempt to nail the gangster.